I apologize if it's loud outside. Someone decided that now is a great time to cut grass or blow leaves or whatever the is going on out there. Ew, I spit on my paper. So today is part 4 of chapter 9 of Women Who Run with Wolves. Today we will be talking about homing and all there is to know and to talk about when it comes to that and the final events of the chapter. Thank you guys for coming through these videos with me. I truly appreciate it. Thank you guys for waiting so long for chapter 9 because it took me so long and I really appreciate you guys being here. But yeah, I really appreciate you guys sitting through these chapters with me and reaching out to me and telling me how much you guys enjoy them. I freaking love you guys. Like, I really love you guys. I love that there's people on this journey with me. It's so cool. I talk about it all the time. You guys should hear from my friends about how much I talk about you guys. I sound corny as shit, but I'm serious. It's really cool. Yeah, so I want to get into the chapter. Without further ado, let's do that. So, what is homing? How does one theoretically go home? In the book, Esty says, the exact answer to where is home is more complex, but in some way, it is an internal place, a place somewhere in time rather than space, where a woman feels of one piece. Home is where a thought or feeling can be sustained instead of being interrupted or torn away from us because something else is demanding our time or attention. And through the ages, women have found myriad of ways to have this, make this for themselves, and even when their duties and chores were endless. Home is a sustained mood or sense that allows us to experience feelings not necessarily sustained in the mundane world. Wonder, vision, peace, freedom from worry, freedom from demands, freedom from constant clacking. All these treasures from home are meant to be cached in the psyche for later use in the topside world. Although there are many physical places one can go to feel her way back to this special home, the physical place itself is not home. It is only the vehicle that rocks the ego to sleep so that we can go the rest of the way by ourselves. The vehicles through and by which women reach home are many. Music, art, forest, ocean, sunrise, solitude. These take us home to a nutritive inner world that has ideas, order, and sustenance all of its own. Home is the pristine, instinctual life that works as easily as a joint sliding upon its greased bearing, where all is as it should be, where all the noise sounds right and all the light is good and all the smells make us feel calm rather than alarmed. How one spends one's time in the return is not important. Whatever revivifies balance is what is essential. That is home. There's not only time to contemplate, but also to learn and uncover the forgotten, the disused, and the buried. There we can imagine the future and also pore over the scar maps of the psyche, learning what led to what and where we will go next. The most important and only true fact to know about home is when to go. When you must go home, you must go home. And that is all there is to know. Esty says in the book, we all have our favorite methods of talking ourselves out of taking time to go home. Yet, when we retrieve our instinctive and wildish cycles, we are under psychic obligation to arrange our lives so that we can live them more and more in accordance. Arguments about the rightness versus the wrongness of leave-taking in order to return home are useless. The simple truth is that when it's time, it's time. For women who almost never go home, the signal and sign is discontent. In the book, Esty says, some women never go home, and instead their lives are in the zombie zone. The most cruel part of this lifeless state is that the woman functions, walks, speaks, acts, and even accomplishes many things, but she no longer feels the effects of what has gone wrong. If she did, her pain would make her immediately turn to the fixing of it. But no, A woman in such a state hobbles on, arms out, defended against the painful loss of home, blind, as they say in the Bahamas, Shigon Sporat, meaning her soul has gone off without her and left her feeling, no matter what she does, not quite substantial. In this state, women have an odd sense that they are accomplishing much but feel little satisfaction. They are doing what they thought they wanted to do, but the treasure in their hands has somehow turned to dust. This is a very good awareness for a woman to have in such a state. Discontent is the secret door to significant and life-giving change. So, for those who are still unsure about how to go home, here are some suggestions. For some, home is a forest, a desert, a sea. In truth, home is holographic. It is carried at full power in even a single tree, a solitary cactus in a plant shop window, a pool of still water. It is also at full potency in a yellow leaf lying on the asphalt, a red clay pot waiting for a root bundle, a drop of water on the skin. When you focus your soul eyes, you will see home in many, many places. I'm sorry if you guys hear talking in the background. My dad's on the phone and I don't know, he talks loud. For how long does one go home? As long as one can or until you have yourself back again. How often is it needed? Far more often if you are sensitive and are very active in the outer world. Less so if you have thick skin and are not so out there. Each woman knows in her heart how often and how long is needed. It is a matter of assessing the condition of the shine in one's eyes, the vibrancy of one's mood, the vitality of one's senses. How do we balance the need to go home with our daily lives? We pre-plan home into our lives. It is always amazing how easily women can take time away if there is an illness, or if a child needs them, or if their car breaks down, or if they have a toothache. Going home has to be given the same value, even stated in crisis proportions if necessary. For it is unequivocally true, if a woman doesn't go when it is her time to go, the hairline crack in her soul psyche becomes a ravine, and the ravine becomes a roaring abyss. If a woman absolutely values her going home cycles, those around her will also learn to value them. It is true that significant home can be reached by taking time away from the click-clack of daily routines, time that is inviolate and solely for ourselves. Solely for ourselves means different things to different women. For some, being in a room with the door closed, but still being accessible to others, is a fine return to home. For others, though, the place from which to dive to home needs to be without even a tiny interruption. No, mommy, where are my shoes? No, honey, do we need anything from the grocery store? For this woman, the inlet to her deep home is evoked by silence. Utter silence, with a capital U and a capital S. For her, the sound of wind through a great loom of trees is silence. For her, the crash of a mountain stream is silence. For her, thunder is silence. For her, the natural order of nature, which asks nothing in return, is life-giving silence. Each woman chooses both as she can and as she must. Regardless of her home time, an hour or days, remember, other people can pet your cats even though your cats say only you can do it right. Your dog will try to make you think that you're abandoning a child on the highway, but it will forgive you. The grass will grow a little bit brown, but it will revive. You and your child will miss each other, but will be glad when you return. Your mate may grump, but they'll get over it. Your boss may threaten, she or he will get over it too. Staying over long is madness. Going home is sanity. Finally, beware of the danger of trying to steal home time rather than demanding it openly and honestly. As Steve says in the book, when the culture, the society, or the psyche does not support this cycle to return home, many women learn to leap over the gate or dig under the fence anyways. They become chronically ill and purloin reading time in bed. They smile that fangy smile as if all is well and go on a subtle work slowdown for the duration. When the cycle to return home is disturbed in women, many feel that in order to free themselves to go, they must pick a fight with their boss, their children, their parents, or their mate in order to assert their psychic needs. So it occurs that in the midst of some blow-up or other, the woman insists, well, I'm leaving since you're such a blank, and you obviously don't care about blank, then I'll just be leaving. Thank you very much. And rumble, roar, spray of gravel, she's off. If a woman has to fight for what is rightfully hers, she feels justified, feels absolutely vindicated in her desire to go home. It is interesting to note that if necessary, wolves fight to gain what they want, whether it be food, sleep, sex, or peace. It would appear that to fight for what one wants is a proper instinctual response to being hindered. However, for many women, the fight must also or only be fought inside, battled out against the entire internal complex that negates her need to begin with. If you have to battle every time you go, your relationships with those close to you may need to be weighed carefully. If you can, it is better to teach your people that you will be more and also different when you return, that you are not abandoning them, but learning yourself anew and bringing yourself back to your real life. Especially if you're an artist, surround yourself with persons who are understanding about your need for home, for chances are you will need, more often than most, to mine the psychic terrain of home in order to learn the cycles of creation. So be brief, but be potent. My friend Normandy, a gifted writer, says she practiced and has gotten it down to this: I am going. These are the best words ever. Say them and then go. We've been talking about home for quite a while, but I wanted to lead us back into the next section of the chapter, which is the medial woman breathing underwater. It goes back into the story and talking some more about what happened there. This is a section out of the book. It says, there's at the core of all woman what Tony Wolff, a Jungian analyst, which, by the way, I'm working on the pronunciation of Jungian. Everybody's been telling me I pronounce it wrong. I'm trying to pronounce that better. A Jungian analyst who lived in the first half of the 20th century called the medial woman. The medial woman stands between the worlds of consensual reality and the mystical unconsciousness that mediates both of them. The medial woman is the transmitter and receiver between two or more of the values or ideas. She is the one who brings new ideas to life, exchanges old ideas for innovative ones, translates between the world of the rational and the world of the imaginal. She hears things and knows things and senses what should come next. So in the story, while the seal woman cannot stay on Earth for too long, as we see by her crippling out, the lonely hunter fisherman cannot go to the home of the seal woman at all, but the child, the medium, is able to traverse back and forth, not staying in either place for too little or for too long. In the book, Esty says, the seal woman and the child together form a system in a woman's psyche that is rather like a bucket brigade. The seal woman, the soul self, passes thoughts, ideas, feelings, and impulses up from the water to the medial self, which in turn lifts those things onto land and consciousness in the outer world. The structure also works conversely. The events of our daily lives, our past traumas, our joys, our fears, and hopes for the future are all passed hand over hand down to the soul, who makes comments on them in our night dreams, emanates its feelings upward through our bodies, or pierces us with the moment of inspiration with an idea on the end of it. The soul sits inside of us and tells us what we want to do with life. The ego sits on the outside of us and tells us how to be successful in life, how to take care of ourselves, how to take care of our loved ones, how to have relationships with people, how to communicate with people, how to get the best out of communications with people, how to know when people are good or bad. The spirit travels between both of those. The spirit is what tells the ego that maybe even though it's been through certain experiences before and they turned out a certain way, that not every single time will it turn out that way, and we have to work through our traumas in order to understand that not all of our conclusions are completely correct. The spirit, it is what comes from our soul and shows us that maybe sitting in our underwear all day long, making music all the time, and never putting it out into the world is not the most lucrative way of living life. But if we do that for a couple months and then create an album and then put it out there and use our ego and our business sense to spread it to the whole world and the masses, then it would be worthwhile and worthy of the world's attention and helpful to the world. These things travel back and forth and help each other and help us move throughout life, and we need all three in order to successfully move throughout life and express our wildish souls. Wild woman, as we've talked about through the entire book, and the medial woman are almost one and the same, but also not. The medial woman is the spirit, the wild woman is the soul. Some women naturally travel back and forth easily and are born with that as a talent. Others have to figure out how to touch into that talent and learn it. Either way, whether you're born knowing how to do it or you have to learn how to do it along life and the path that it takes you, the more often you do it, the better you become at it. Finally, in the last section based on the story, is surfacing. This is when the old one and the mother seal take the child back up to shore and allow it to go, and he lives his life and becomes a storyteller and a singer and a drummer and all of that. As wonderful and free as our deep, passionate, wild lives are, we cannot live in them forever. We cannot live in our souls forever. It's just not realistic to life. There is a reason that we're on this earth, and we can't live our entire lives focused on exploring our souls and expressing our souls, because the purpose of that soul exploration and that soul expression is to help other people on this earth. It may be hard and sad to leave our souls at the point of reaching the real world around us, but it's necessary. In the book, Esty says, "The remedy for this small mourning is given when the seal woman instructs her child, 'I am always with you. Only touch what I have touched, my fire sticks, my knife, my stone carvings of otters and seals, and I will breathe into your lungs a wind for the singing of your songs.' Her words are a special kind of wild promise. They imply that we should not spend much time in immediate yearning to go back. Instead, understand these tools, interact with them, and you will feel her presence as though you are a drum skin that has been tapped by a wild hand." These tools that we have gathered within our wilder self, within our souls, are the necessary tools for integration into mundane life. They're the real tools a woman uses to build her handcrafted life. In the book, Esty says, for a modern woman, her knife symbolizes insight, her willingness and ability to cut away the superfluous, making clear endings and carving new beginnings. Her fire-making declares her ability to rise from failure, to create passion in her own behalf, to burn something to the ground if necessary. Her stone carvings embody her memory of her own wild consciousness, her union with the natural, instinctual life. When we use these tools of passion, insight, and memory, the promise of the soul is that it will listen, speak, and guide the way. Unlike the ego, the soul has to be allowed to lead the way. We have to push down the ego in order to listen to the soul, which is why going home is so necessary. But having these tools helps us remind and bring out the soul again so that it's given permission to take lead and show us where to go. This does not mean killing the ego, but it does mean that the ego can take a back seat for a minute. In the book, Esty says, the old Inuits say that the breath of a god and the breath of a human, when commingled, cause a person to create an intense and holy poetry. It is that holy poetry and singing we are after. We want powerful words and songs that can be heard underwater and over land. It is the wild singing we are after, our chance to use the wild language we are learning by heart under the sea. When a woman speaks her truth, fires up her intention and feeling, stays tight with the instinctive nature, she is singing. She is living in the wild breath stream of the soul. To live this way is a cycle in itself, one meant to go on, go on, go on. That is why the boy could not stay underwater. And that's why our spirit must come up as well. As strange and other as the mundane world may seem to us, it is also, in other ways, a home to us. And with the promise of connection to soul, continued renewal, and trips of solitude, we will never lose the balance of our spirit again, or at least not for too long. Finally, in this section, Esty says, instead of trying to make the magic last, we will learn to just live. And instead of resisting or dreading our chosen work, we move into it fluidly, alive, filled with new notions and curious to see what happens next. After all, the person who has returned to home has survived being carried out to sea with the great seal spirits. So, ending the story, I wanted to share these last two sections that Esty's added to the end of the chapter. It's called The Practice of Intentional Solitude and A Woman's Innate Ecology. I just feel that these two sections really share a lot and help a lot to the journey, so that's the last thing we'll talk about. In The Practice of Intentional Solitude, Esty says, in order to converse with the wild feminine, a woman must temporarily leave the world and inhabit a state of aloneness in the oldest sense of the word. Long ago, the word alone was treated as two words, all one. To be all one meant to be wholly one, to be in oneness, either essentially or temporarily. That is precisely the goal of solitude, to be all one. It is the cure for a frazzled state so common to modern women, the one that makes her, as the old saying goes, leap onto her horse, ride off in all directions. Solitude is not an absence of energy or action, as some believe, but it is rather a boon of wild provisions transmitted to us from the soul. In ancient times, as recorded by physician healers, religious and mystics, purposeful solitudes was both palliative and preventative. It was used to heal fatigue and to prevent weariness. It was also used as an oracle, as a way of listening to the inner self to solicit advice and guidance otherwise impossible to hear in the din of daily life. This might be the most important section of the whole book, in my personal opinion. To practice solitude intentionally, I believe, is the difference between it all. Just the difference. It's the difference between a girl and a woman. It's the difference between wisdom and foolishness, sanity, or chaos. It's the hardest part for me personally actually to do and to take time out to do. But whenever I do practice it, it's the absolute most beneficial. Traditionally, a woman's menstruation period, a woman's moon, has been considered throughout history the period of time where she's supposed to take solitude. In the Bible, it's said to be dirty and a reason why she runs away. Clearly, as women, we all know that maybe they sent away women because they were quote-unquote dirty, but as soon as those women got away, like, from the society during that period of time, they weren't sad about it. Personally, for me, whenever I reach my menstruation period and I haven't been taking periods of solitude throughout the month for myself purposefully, it's always the most intense periods of my life. Like, it's like my body is like, girl, you need some alone time, we gonna make it happen. Like, I go through the most cramps, the most moodiness, the most swings, the most headaches, just the most. I just go through the most. And it's because it's necessary and, like, essential to my connectedness to myself, to my sanity, to take time to just check in on myself, to give myself a self-checkup. During my period, when I need the most solitude, it's actually the time when I feel like I'm in a war with myself. Let me know if you guys relate to this at all, but I literally can feel like I'm, like, actually psychic when I'm on my period. Like, I will feel physical cramps from my anxiety. I will be able to predict that someone in my life is going to come up and try to talk to me, or someone who I don't need to mess with or I do need to talk to, like, is going to make their way and make an entrance. It's happened so many times where I literally will feel like, oh, why does my stomach hurt? And then some person, Satan, tries to come into my phone and be like, hello, you know? I don't know if you guys go through that too, but I just feel like it's so necessary to take that time to give yourself intentional solitude, or else your body forces it out of you, as we talked about earlier in the chapter. And my body does this to me regularly. If I don't take that time throughout the month, my period, it comes, and it's just like that. In the book, Estes talks about this actually. She said, my experience in analyzing women leads me to believe that much of a woman's premenstrual crankiness is not just a physical syndrome, but is equally attributable to her being thwarted in her needs to take enough time away to revivify and renew herself. I always laugh when I hear someone quoting early anthropologists who claimed that menstruating women of various tribes were considered unclean and forced to leave the village until they were over it. All women know that even if there were such a forced ritual exile, every single woman, to a woman, would, when her time came, leave the village hanging her head mournfully, at least until she was out of sight, and then suddenly break into a jig down the path, cackling all the way. I notice this fact quite often, as I've told you guys, with my own period, and I think that the lesson that I learned from this chapter, part of the reason it took me 2 months to get through this, is to hopefully make it a practice to continue to take intentional solitude regularly so that this doesn't have to happen all the time. So, leading on to the next question, how does one make a practice of having soul conversation? Estes says in the book, as in the tale, if we establish a regular practice of intentional solitude, we invite a conversation between ourselves and the wild soul that comes near to our shore. We do this not only just to be near the wild and soulful nature, but as in the mystical tradition, since time out of mind, the purpose of this union is for us to ask questions and for the soul to advise. How does one call up the soul? There are many ways, through meditation or in the rhythms of running, drumming, singing, writing, painting, music making, visions of great beauty, prayer, contemplation, rite and ritual, standing still, even entrancing moods and ideas. All are psychic summons that call the soul up from its dwelling place. However, I advocate using those methods that require no props, no special location, and that can be accomplished as easily in a minute as in a day. This means using one's mind to summon the soul self. Everyone has at least one familiar state of mind in which to effect this kind of solitude. For myself, solitude is rather like a folded up forest that I carry with me everywhere and unfurl around me when I need. I sit at the feet of the great old trees of my childhood. From that vantage point, I ask myself questions, receive answers, and coalesce my woodland back down to the size of a love note till the next time. The experience is immediate, brief, and informative. Truly, the only thing one needs for intentional solitude is the ability to tune out distractions. A woman can learn to detach from other people, noise, and chatter, no matter if she is in the midst of a contentious board meeting, no matter if she is being stalked by a house that needs to be cleaned by a bulldozer, no matter if she is being surrounded by 80 relatives fighting, singing, and dancing their way through a 3-day wake. If you have ever been a teenager, you definitely know how to tune out. If you have ever been the mother of an insomniac 2-year-old, you definitely know how to take intentional solitude. It is not that hard to do, it's just hard to remember to do. I have this saying that I say with my boyfriend very often, but the simplest things are almost never easy to do. And I think I might have even said that in a video before, but that is 100% true. We all know how to take intentional solitude, it's just sometimes not the easiest thing to remember to do. We can all gain knowledge through taking soul time and taking solitude. But practicing this creates a connection where we can assess our journey along the way. This is the real definition of self-love and self-care, not the Instagram definition. Taking time to be alone, showing yourself attention and care, purposefully healing your own wounds and working through trauma, and then diagnosing other injuries before they worsen, and then making plans to work and heal through those injuries as well. In the book, Esty says, "In such a state of solitude we can do this, for it is during that time that we bring all aspects of self to bear at one point in time, and we pull them, inquire of them, finding out what we, soul, wishes right now, and then gaining it if possible. In this way, we take vital soundings of our current conditions. There are many aspects of our lives for us to assess on a continuing basis: habitat, work, creative life, family, mate, children, mother, father, sexuality, spiritual life, and so on. The measurement used in assessment is simple: what needs less and what needs more? We are asking from the instinctive self, not in stilted logic, not ego-wise, but wild woman-wise. What work, adjustments, loosenings, or emphasizings need to take place? Are we on a proper course in spirit and soul? Is one's life, inner life, showing on the outside? What needs battening, protection, ballast, or weights? What needs to be disposed of, moved, or changed? Start with these questions, and over time, the inquiries into your soul will become more. You'll grow and you'll know more things to ask. Eventually, the questions will be all of your own, and no one can guess them for you. You'll have a complete conversation with the best friend that you've created inside of yourself, your own wildish woman, your own soul. And finally, I just wanted to share one last small part of the last section of the book, Women's Innate Ecology. One last fight for solitude and connection. Just wanted to read this section. It says, "In the tale it is said that many try to hunt the soul to capture and kill her, but no hunter is able. It is one more fairy tale reference to the indestructibility of the wild soul. Even if we have been working, sexing, resting, or playing out of cycle, it does not kill the wild woman. It only tires us out. The good news is that we can make the necessary corrections and return to our own natural cycles again. It is through the love for and the caring for our natural seasons that we protect our lives from being dragged into someone else's rhythm, someone else's dance, someone else's hunger. It is through validation of our own distinct cycles for sex, creation, rest, play, and work that we relearn to define and discriminate between all our wild senses and seasons. We know that we cannot live the confiscated life. We know that there is a time when things of men and the people and things of the world must be left for a while. We have learned that we are like amphibians. We can live on land, but not forever, not without trips to the water and to home. Overly civilized and overly oppressive cultures try to keep women from returning home. Too often, she is warned away from water until she is thin as a dime and dimmed in light. When the call to home comes, she will follow, has been secretly or not so secretly preparing to follow. She and all the allies of her inner psyche will restore her ability to return. This empowering process does not apply to just a woman here and a woman there. It applies to all of us. Everyone becomes snagged by land commitments. Yet the old one out in the sea calls everyone. Everyone must return. None of these ways to return home are dependent on economic, social status, education, or physical mobility. Even if we can only see one blade of grass, even if we only have 1/4 foot of the sky to scree, even if we only have a rangy weed coming up through a crack in the sidewalk, we can see our cycles in and within nature. We can all swim out to sea. We can all commune with the seal from the rock. All women must have this union. Mothers with children, women with lovers, single women, women with jobs, women with doldrums, women riding high on the world, introverted women, extroverted women, women with industrial strength responsibilities. Jung said, "It would be far better to simply admit to our spiritual poverty. When spirit becomes heavy, it turns to water. Therefore, the way of the soul leads to the water." The return to home and the intervals of conversing with the seal from the rock in the sea are our acts of innate and integral ecology, for they all are a return to water, a meeting with the wild friend, the one who above all others loves us unremittingly, unguardedly, and with profound endurance. We need only to look into, learn from, those soulful eyes that are wild and wise and loving. That is the end of chapter 9. Okay, that's the end of chapter 9. I hope you guys enjoyed that chapter a lot. Personally, I needed that chapter. It was really, really great for me. It reminded me of like some things that I had been kind of forgetting about for a minute there, and that's usually what happens when we read these chapters together, is like it really puts deep in my brain how important this book is to me and how much I need to like really pay attention to it and actually do the things that Estes talks about. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed these videos. I hope you guys have been enjoying the chapter. Chapter 10 will be out very, very soon. I'm excited for that. I'm working on that. I love you guys so much. Thank you guys for watching. If you're bored and want to watch anything else, I have other videos on my channel that I put up on a regular basis, so you should check those out too, and subscribe so you'll be ready when I come out with the next video. Also, make sure you have your notification bell turned on so you'll be ready when I come out with chapter 10. And if you guys would like to talk about the chapter, obviously you can leave me a comment. I will respond to the comment as soon as I see it. But the faster way to get in touch with me is my Instagram, and that's always listed in the description of the video. And I love DMing and talking with you guys about these videos. So let me know, talk to me. I love you guys so much.